Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. Today, Thursday, March 20th, 2025. Now, we're covering the Boasberg versus Trump setup in D.C., but first things first. We've been covering increasingly close, and today I believe will be the day of the verdict. The case of Bronx drill rapper Kevin Perez, also known as K-Flock. Yesterday, the jury got the case, and it went on, and at the end of relatively the end of the day, around 4 o'clock, the jury wanted to know what is a reasonable man. That's why, and the two sides, of course, didn't agree. The government says you need to talk about, unless you're just going to stick to a person of ordinary prudence, you need to talk about the person's own idiosyncrasies. You cannot talk about that. Basically, this all comes down to the shooting that took place on 151st Street and Amsterdam Avenue, in which Huascar Hernandez stepped out of a barber shop and is seen on video seemingly to put his hand into his jacket and then is suddenly shot by Kevin Perez. And the question becomes, in a way you could say it's about self-defense, but it has to be whether it was reasonable for him to feel fear. And of course, does this involve, would it be reasonable as a drill rapper or reasonable as the Parks Department employee? The law really comes down, it's much more subjective than you might think. And we're going to get a definition by Judge Lyman. The jury's going to consider his deliberations. Who knows? Maybe they're only on that count so far, or maybe that's the last count for them to deal with. You just don't know. Now, in the Iran murder for hire trial, in the closing arguments yesterday, of course, the government hammered away, talked about Masi's advocacy and the Russian mob and Iran intelligence. It was all very well put together. The defense tried their best to poke holes, mostly talking about how the cooperating witness, Mediev, can't be believed, lied that his mother was dead, took money for a false case of cancer. It does sound pretty bad. And they also, Omarov's lawyer said that his mother lied. So these are two trials. They're really something. And if you could see them, you'd be amazed. Now, I don't want to say on the big picture, but there's a brewing standoff between Chief Judge Jeb Boasberg and the Trump administration about these flights. We covered it on Saturday. The hearing, the order not to turn planes around. At that time, Boasberg didn't say turn planes around if they're in U.S. airspace. And the defense is now saying, the respondents, so to speak, are saying that the planes were already out of U.S. airspace. He's asked for a lot of details about the planes, and when they took off, they said they don't want to give it. It's state secrets. And Judge Boasberg gave an extension to noon today for them to put in a filing about state secrets if they intend to assert it. So we're going to be covering that as we're on you could say, verdict watch in the K-Flock case and then in the Iran murder for hire case. There's also Javice, but that's gone on a much slower schedule. And there's also Nadine Menendez jury selection, which is even slower. Now, there's also the United Nations that we cover. We put in yet more questions yesterday. There was some talk about, they were asked about Voice of America, and of course, the UN said they care very much about press freedom. What I want to tell you is not true, on both sides of that equation, but as to the UN, totally not true. The UN has targeted, roughed up, and banned Inner City Press from covering it, even though we get scoops on a daily basis from disgruntled UN staff in Libya and elsewhere. Okay, we're going in.